Hello, everybody, and welcome to After the Game with Todd Leary. Of course, Indiana taking on Illinois tonight. Coming to you live from Yogi's, also live from the tap on Mass Ave Studios in Indianapolis for Todd Leary right now. Todd, how you doing, brother? Merry Christmas, by the way. Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Appreciate it.
Hey, before we get to this game, before I forget, the other night when we did the last game, who did Carmel play? Because they had a hell of a game. They won, and Will Leary at 18 points, and man, it was a great game. They went to overtime. Who was that against?
God,
it doesn't even matter.
Bar Reeve.
Yes, it was a great game. It was a great high school game. It was one of those games that doesn't happen very often either. And I don't want to get off on this tangent, but I missed it last week, and I hated that. Great game. Will Leary had 18 points. It was a great win for them.
Appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, let's get back to Indiana and Illinois tonight. Indiana goes on the road. A game that, I'll be honest with you, nobody gives Indiana a chance in this game. And, man, they came out fighting. This is at least the effort that you want to see. And we can talk about all the other things. But right now, they gave the effort that I didn't expect, but that you have to get from them.
Yeah, they did. I mean, a lot of guys came in the game that I think the biggest shock to me was kind of the lineups, especially the starting lineup. Rob Finney not starting tonight. I mean, I thought it was interesting the way Archie went about this, and putting Geronimo in there knocks down a big three. Leo came in early. We saw a lot of Christian Lander in the first half, not as much in the second half, but I think. I'm bringing that up as something we'll want to get to more later, but I'm bringing that up because I think it goes to the point of what you're saying. I think it's kind of, guys, if you're not going to play hard, I'm going to put people in there that will. And I think that's what the message was.
Yeah, because Rob Finney is a guy you kind of think as the hub of that offense, or has been for a couple of years, and to have a freshman come in, shake it up. But they need someone to do what Trey did, and one of the first things he did was try to score. He was really active, and he was trying, and that's what they have to do. They have to shake it up, like y'all said last week.
Well, and you know what? I'll tell you right now. Like, I think the consistency of Trey Galloway to start the season out is what got him a lot of minutes. If he doesn't start trying to shoot the basketball and score more often, which is what he got recruited to do, he's going to lose his minutes. Like I'm telling you, I'm calling it right now. I'm going to tell you, if he doesn't start looking at the basket and trying to score, he cost Indiana, and I want you to understand, I'm one of the biggest Trey Galloway supporters that there is. I think he is fantastic. I love him as a player. Right now, he is hurting Indiana's offense because he just will not look at the basket. And he put Trace Jackson-Davis in some really difficult positions tonight because Trey Galloway passed up shots that he should have taken, and he ended up giving it to Trace at the end of a shot clock and putting him in a bad position. And Indiana ended up with worse shots. So, I'm not trying to go negative on it all of a sudden, but
no, it sounds like a guy who's trying to find his role without trying to overstep that bounds, and you don't know where that line is at first.
Yeah, I agree with you at first, but we're 8, 9 games, 10 games into it now. Now we're past that, and it's time. It's Big Ten time, and every possession. This is what it's hard to understand as a high school kid when you transition into playing in college for one, but especially the Big Ten, because you don't have possessions where you can create 4 good shot opportunities. You're lucky to create one. And that one good shot opportunity might happen 8 seconds into the shot clock. It might happen 28 seconds into the shot clock. But when it presents itself to you, you've got to be ready to take a shot and make take what's given to you. And right now, Trey Galloway is being way too passive on the offensive end of the court. And guys are going to pass him by and get more playing time if he doesn't figure out a way. And he got recruited as a scorer. He didn't get recruited as a facilitator on the offensive end. He got recruited as a scorer. And so he's hurting the offense right now by not taking those shots.
Try to hit a couple of these comments. Mike asked, will somebody find out if Parker Stewart is playing this year? No one knows yet. That's a decision he's going to make. He lost his father, who was his coach at UT Martin, transferring to Indiana at mid-semester. We don't know if he's going to play yet or not. It's a decision he'll make, and when that happens, we do. He also asked about Joey Brunk. That's still an indefinite thing. They're not going to tell us anything, and I promise you, I don't know when that's going to happen. And the fact that it's gone this long, that's a little worrisome, but maybe not. But we don't know. That's the things we just don't know. You got to go forward with what you have here. Race Thompson is a guy that today. I know he's very busy, not getting a lot offensively from him, but is that because he's too busy defensively, or does he still have to come up with some more offensive output?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those scenarios where I think Indiana is going to say, Indiana fans, Indiana coaches, hopefully the players are going to say, we're best when Trace Jackson Davis touches the ball. Well, how many teams do you know across the country where there are two inside guys that you constantly are feeding the ball? And I'm only bringing that up because if you're Race Thompson, there's not going to be a whole lot of plays run for you. You're going to get a lot of stuff off of trash, late shot clock, rebound baskets, tip-ins, free throw line, and the occasional step out and knock down an outside shot to draw the defender away. So I think Race is the one guy on this team that probably the fewest amount of plays are going to be run for. And we talked about this in the last game. I think in the Northwestern game, they started the second half out with the game plan of feeding Race Thompson the ball because they came down the court, fed Race the ball. He had the mismatch in that game. And I think there's a game like tonight, I think is another game that he might have had the mismatch. I know is it Frank Williams? I always call him by the wrong name, but the number 20, the Williams kid from Illinois, I mean, when him guarding Race Thompson is a mismatch. Like that is Race Thompson can bully him all day long. And I am with you. I thought that comment is a great comment because I really thought that was the mismatch we would go for. Use Trace Jackson Davis as the guy who gets the offensive rebounds at that point. Try to rebound over or around Kofi Coburn because you're not going to go over him.
Another question that came up, but I lost it now. But why are they? I remember bringing this. It reminds me of the Harlem Globetrotters when you all made this comment last week, and I just started laughing. It's the middle of the week. I was at home alone one day, and that comment popped in my head. I just started laughing. But someone asked again, why do we run a weave? It's Adam. Why do we run a weave at the top? Well, damn it, it moved on me. Why do they run the weave? Why are they doing the Harlem Globetrotter stuff?
I don't know. What is that? I don't have an explanation.
And then they did it one time today, and I remember commenting, and I don't have a problem with Race shooting a three, and I know you don't either. But when they run a lot of time off the clock and the last shot ends up in his hands for a three, I don't think that's the shot they're looking for, is it?
I mean, I don't think the shot is the issue with that. The timing of what you're saying, I do agree with. I don't – shot clocks are not long enough nowadays. Now, the only answer I can come up with is Indiana does not want to get into an up and down the floor game with a team like Illinois. So if you want to try to just slow things down and, make the defense move around a whole bunch, because that weave, there's teams that run a weave trying to find an opening and get a guy opportunity to drive. And there's teams that run the weave just to kill some time. And Indiana runs it just to kill some time. So what they were doing tonight, I'm assuming they were just trying to control the pace of play and slow things down. But when the shot clock is what it is, I mean, if you take 6 seconds to get across the line and then you run the weave for 10 seconds and all of a sudden, the next open opportunity that you have to take. And if you don't, you're going to end up with a forced shot at the end. And that's why I just don't understand the weave. I didn't grow up in that era of basketball. I know coaches nowadays would say you're outdated and that's what everybody does because you see a lot of teams do it, but I can't give you a great explanation for it.
I'm laughing because I see that Santa Claus is joining us, and I saw his latest name is Bardo Sucks. Not a fan of Steve Bardo tonight. I guess I missed the comments that he made, but welcome in Santa Claus and special guest. I see.
I brought a guest today.
What a night this is turning out to be. Who we got there, Santa?
This is just Joe. This guy named Joe. I found him. He invited me in.
Of course it is.
He said he'd make me a libation, and here I am.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the show.
You guys keep having me on, and you don't think I'm going to bring a guest into my studio?
You know what? That's what makes it special. One day we're from the North Pole, the next day it's Joe. So we got to keep changing it up for everybody. But talking about the game, Brian, Indiana, a good effort, but they're just not enough there. They don't have enough guys stepping up. Not enough guys on the interior tonight in this game where they did a good job on Coburn, actually. Well, they had him to 5 points in the first half.
Well, let's not make him out to be somebody he's not. I mean, he's just a huge body. I mean, I don't know that he's all that skilled of a player. I don't see him being an NBA player, personally. If we can put up small bodies against him and neutralize him, he's not that great. I just can't believe we dribble off your knee. I mean, the dribbling up the court and dribble off your knee thing is too much for me to watch. I know we have to get all excited because he made some threes today, but those kinds of turnovers are just unbelievable to me. And then Finney diving on the ground at the end of a possession and giving up that huge three, it kills the team. I mean, we were right there, down a couple of points, and you do silly stuff like that, and then it's over.
Todd, I mean, they were in this game almost the entire night. It went away at the end. But what was the difference for Indiana tonight in this game? They played so much better than they did in their previous game. Of course, not enough, but what was the difference for them tonight?
It's easy to look at the stats and look at, okay, well, Illinois was 2 for 15 from the three-point line, up until the last 7 minutes, and then they go 5 for 5 to end the game. So that's obviously the statistical difference. If you look at it from, just from watching basketball for 50 years, it's experienced team versus a younger team. And I think as Indiana fans, we've watched enough of it. We've watched this team. I think we all probably had the end result that we expected. Not that we wanted, for sure. But I expected at some point, I kept thinking it would click and Illinois would take over the game. I thought it would be earlier than it was. But you have to give Indiana some credit for that. But truly, I think it can be as simple as coming down to the end of it and saying it's an experienced team that's very comfortable with their roles and what they do versus, tonight, how many guys on Indiana's team are comfortable with their role? Not very many. And there was experimental lineups in there today, which I love. I'm 100% in favor of continuing. And I hope we shake the lineup up even more because I think shaking the lineup up tonight, especially the starting lineup, but Christian Lander playing a good solid 8 to 10 minutes in that first half, I think that leads to some different lineups here in the next few games.
Brian, all the freshmen got in tonight. We haven't seen some of them in a while. Anthony Leo was in. Geronimo hits a three. That's not what I'm expecting from him, but man, he steps out and hits a three. That's got to give those. They need that confidence. All those freshmen need the confidence to continue as they move forward in this season to become a role player or become someone that can actually contribute. I'm assuming across the board.
Yeah, it was good to see him get in there. There was a couple of them that looked a little nervous. I thought Leo looked like he was a fish out of water, and he couldn't keep anybody in front of him. But again, that's a big road test in the Big Ten, and it's early for him. Like Todd's been talking about, I don't really know what lineup I want to see yet with this team. I haven't figured out who I think should be on the court together. And I don't think that's a good thing necessarily that, we're this many games in and we don't know who we want to see on the court. I do like that, some of the younger guys are getting some minutes in the Big Ten. Experience is huge, especially in that league. So I guess for that reason, we didn't really think we were going to go in and necessarily win this game. But to compete and hang around is probably a victory.
Todd?
Yeah, I think you're right about that being a victory. If you can feel, I feel way better about this loss than I did to Northwestern the other day because I at least see them trying to shake some things up and do some stuff a little bit different. And I'll tell you, my comment about Finney the other night after the Northwestern game, he's a very solid player, okay? Since when did Indiana start being very comfortable with really solid players? Like, we need productivity. We need a guy – I don't need a guy that's not going to make mistakes. I need a guy that's going to produce for me. And that's where I think shaking the lineup up and putting – that's why I think Galloway is kind of on the fence right now because if he doesn't start putting up numbers, it's one thing to not turn it over. It's another thing to not put up any stats. And he's going to need to put up some stats if he's going to stay in the lineup.
And let's talk about some stats because we can't ignore the fact that Armand Franklin continues to step up. I mean, he did it in a couple of games. We're like, okay, is he going to continue? Yeah.
Right.
Man, 23 points. He was 5 of 6 from behind the three-point line. He's become the best three-point shooter Indiana's had in a few years now because they haven't had anybody. But that makes him the guy all of a sudden. And he's a sophomore. Didn't expect this from him, this much production. I didn't.
It was interesting. It was interesting to see the story they did on him where they talked about buying the basketball goal. And did you see all that stuff? When they talked about buying the basketball goal and putting it up there.
No. When did that happen? Was that like Thanksgiving or?
Yeah, I think it was quarantine. I think it was in quarantine, like in the summertime.
Okay.
in the summertime. But here, and I'm not trying to look. If we can get that kind of play out of him, we're a different team. Absolutely no question about it. We talked about this 4 or 5 games ago. We talked about we're not getting any production out of any guard position at all. So if they can get that from him, and it's been consistent now, this is what, 4 or 5 games in a row. My problem is, what if we're giving the credit to buying the basketball goal back in the summertime, what happened at the beginning of the year when we started shooting? Because he was still shooting like 15% when we started the season out. But believe me, I'll take Alzheimer's disease and forget about all that. I'll take amnesia and forget that I remember that. But let's take these 4 games and move forward with it. Now we can't be satisfied with that. Everybody's got to look at Armand and be like, okay, well, Armand Franklin's doing it. Where's my improvement? How am I going to get better? And that's what I think Finney can get better. Al Durham can get better. Like, there's so much room for improvement for this team. It's crazy.
Yeah, Brian, when you think about people who have to develop, those are the 2 guys you think of first, Rob Finney and Al Durham, because they're here. They're veterans. They've been here. And those are the guys you expect to lead these freshmen, the freshman backcourt guys, to show them the way. And man, some of these guys are stepping up and passing, and you want that competition, but you need your vets to be the leaders.
Yeah, hey, there's no question. They're not getting it done. Some of the silly mistakes that both of those guys are making is the part that bothers me, and that's where I think Todd the other day was talking about after Northwestern is you don't wad up the season and throw it out necessarily, but at what point in time do you say, okay, those guys are only going to get 18 minutes and we're going to play the young guys and get them some experience? Because again, with Durham and Finney, if you can't give us some stats, then it's just time to, you're not giving us that great of leadership. We need veteran leadership, but it comes at a price. I mean, you can't just keep playing them if they can't put any stats on the stat sheet.
Todd, I threw that question up there. It says, Todd, Brian, if you were making the lineup, who would you put together based off your current knowledge of the team and what you've seen so far?
Well, here's an interesting thing that I'll look at. Illinois is a great example. We just watched Illinois play. Their Curbelo kid, who's a true freshman, he's out of control. He's playing with his hair on fire. He's making all kinds of crazy plays, but he's making a whole bunch of plays along with it. And he makes Illinois better. I'll tell you, he came in rated below Christian Lander when it comes to the rating system of point guards going to college. And so if I'm Indiana, I give Christian Lander that same amount of freedom that Illinois has given the Curbelo kid, because I'd put him on the floor. I would see what he could do. He doesn't start the game. Curbelo doesn't start the game. You want to start Rob Finney and let him be the starter on the floor, and then put Christian Lander in and see what he can do, and give him more than 3 or 4 or 5 minutes at a time. Let him feel like he's going to stay on the floor no matter what, because here's the one thing, I always used to say this as a player a long time ago. Bobby Hurley could have never played basketball at IU for Bob Knight. And Bobby Hurley was an All-American, won national championships at Duke, but he could have never played for Bob Knight, because the second he made some of those crazy turnovers he'd have come out of the game.
He did in blue chips.
But that's the difference between playing in that kind of system and you get a coach like Mike Krzyzewski who gives these guys freedom to make some mistakes and do that. And I think Archie Miller needs to put himself in a position where he allows Christian Lander to make some mistakes. So in answering the question, I'm going to say my lineup, the bulk minutes. I don't care about starting lineups. I don't care who starts the game. I'm talking about bulk minutes playing together. I'd have Christian Lander. I'd have Armand Franklin, obviously Trace Jackson-Davis and Race Thompson. And that last position, I'm telling you, I would go somewhere between Jordan Geronimo and Jerome Hunter. And I would see which one of those guys wants to fight it out for minutes, knowing they're going to play, 25 minutes in a basketball game and not little 4-minute increments. And I'd see what we get out of those guys. I think that gives us good size, good athleticism. It gives us more shooting on the floor. And then I'd let Trey Galloway, work himself into the lineup, because I think if he knows we've got to have him score, he comes in with a different mindset.
Brian?
I actually like what Todd said. I'd go along with him. That sounds about right to me. I already said I don't know what I'd do, but I like what he's doing. So I think I would do the same thing. I mean, You're addressing the young guys. You're getting them some minutes. Hunter seems like he could be a guy that I don't know, get hot and make 4 or 5 buckets in a row. The stable, I'm running the team and I'm gonna just run these plays at the top that are not putting any pressure on the defense is just brutal. It's so brutal to watch us make these exchanges up, at 25, 27 feet where there's no pressure on them. And I mean, Trace Jackson Davis, he was pretty bad tonight. He has got to be able to make a 19-foot shot. I mean, a 19-foot shot, that's not even a deep shot anymore for these kids.
Right.
I mean, Coburn was backed off in the paint. Now you're letting the monster hang out in the paint and not burn up any energy at all. And Trace Jackson Davis at the three-point line doing the Globetrotter handoff thing. He doesn't even turn and look at the basket. I guess on the positive side, we're going to have him for 2 more years unless he makes a stupid decision and leaves. If he can't make that shot and look at the basket, he is not going to play at the next level ever.
Well, you go to the NBA. I mean, he's got to have a jump shot. He's not going to camp out in the paint in the NBA. He's not nearly big enough. So, yeah, has to develop a jump shot. And talking about the freshman, Christian Lander's only been playing a couple minutes up until now. At worst case, and I know this may be hard and you guys would know better, but I'd love to see him come in 4 or 5 times for 2 minutes at a time if you're only going to play him 2 minutes.
No, see, you can't do that, though.
I'm going to ask you because can you not get into a rhythm that way?
No, you can, especially a player like him. And a guy like him needs to understand, hey, look, I'm going to play. I'm going to play no matter what. It's my team. I'm going to play no matter what. Okay, I think that's where Rob Finney is in the whole scenario. He feels like he's going to play. He knows he's going to play even if he makes mistakes. But a guy like Christian Lander is a scorer. He's not just physically can do it. He is mentally a scorer, and he'll play different than Rob Finney will. And right now, see, the question that was posed was based on knowing my knowledge of this team and where they are. That's who I would play right now. If you'd asked me that question 4 games ago, I would not have included Armand Franklin in that statement. But he's played his way into being our number 1 scorer right now. So of course you're going to fill him into that. My point in that is saying 6 games from now, I'll probably give you a different answer in who I would have on the floor. And if coaches are not adapting to that throughout a season, then they're not having any player development. They're not having anybody on their team get better throughout the year. And I think that was our argument against last year's basketball team for Indiana, because the lineup stayed the same the whole year long, no matter what. It never changed. And that's just not something that ever happens. I think Brian would be the first one to tell you, when we were younger in our careers, if we had really good weeks of practicing, a lot of times not only played a lot more, we started in games. I started games as freshman, and people would be like, what? And then I probably started as many games as a freshman as it is a junior. So these guys have got coaching staff has got to be able to be a little bit more flexible and start in these starting lineups. I keep saying starting lineups, but bulk minute lineups.
We did see the rotation get a little bit bigger tonight where John Monroe was in, Leal was in, and in early. And there had been talk because there had to be some shakeup. We saw a change in the lineup, the starting lineup. As you mentioned, doesn't really matter. But does that give Trey Galloway more confidence that he needs? Because he was, like I said earlier, he was always looking to score, but he was also – it's like, I don't want to make a mistake.
When was he looking to score? I don't agree with that statement. I heard somebody say that earlier. I
thought that he was looking to, but he was also seemed like he didn't want to make a mistake at the same time.
If we went through the game film, I could show you. I'll show you 20 possessions.
He passed up.
He passed up shots that he should have taken, and Indiana ended up taking terrible shots in that scenario. And that's as bad as a turnover.
Well, the one time he had a 12-footer on the baseline
and tried to drive in
against
Coburn. A Coburn, I know.
So something's wrong with him. That is not the same player as our first or second game. I know we weren't playing a good team, but he's got me a little nervous right now that maybe he doesn't have the stones, because he came in and running and gunning and shooting in the first couple games, and I mean, unless he's being told not to look at the basket,
which he's not. Sense. He's not. Yeah.
And for Todd to say that he's going to reject like short spurts of minutes, And he's the guy. What if Coach Knight wouldn't have played in the last minute of the Duke game? He scored 9 points in 1 minute, and he doesn't want that kind of
time. I'm saying I don't want that for Christian Lander.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I
want Christian Lander to have a bulk of minutes knowing, hey, I'm going to get to play.
And I get that. But what I was saying was, as opposed to not getting in, I mean, I know it sucks. It would suck to come in and come back out because you want to get into a flow and get into a rhythm.
You feel like one of two things. You either feel like I can't make a mistake or I'm going to come out, or if I don't hurry up and do something, I'm going to come out, because you're probably in there just to give a guy a rest for a minute or two. And you know, you've got to have those guys, but those guys should. I tell you right now, the next ball game, I'd start Jordan Geronimo. I'd see what happens. I mean, the guy came in there and knocked down he's done that twice in games this year where he's not played very many minutes and come in and knock down a shot that he looked pretty darn confident in. We keep saying he's not a shooter, but to me, he looks the most confident of any of the freshmen.
He certainly looked confident taking that shot, because that was not one. I did not expect him to take that, and just jumped right up with it. Going forward now, what do they have to do from this game? They have to win. And I know that there's no, I'm seriously, they have to win. And it's tough in this league, but they went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams. I think Illinois is probably dropping to like maybe 4, but still one of the best teams in the league. They went toe-to-toe with them on the road, but they've got to get over the hump. They've got to win. They lost at home to Northwestern. They've got to move forward.
Northwestern made them look good tonight by at least winning that next game, going to 3-0. But you know, they've got exactly what they need. I said this last year as well, in that the schedule I think works out good for Indiana, in that they've got 2 home games against Penn State and Maryland. All right, now that's 2 teams that this will tell you right now whether they're going to fight their way out of the cellar, or they're going to be there all season long. Because if you can't win these 2 games, you can't win in this league. And both of these teams are adequate. They're not terrible, but they're also not very good, and they're not great. And they should finish in the bottom 3 or 4 of the league. And so you've got the schedule you need. You hopefully would have won the Northwestern game, but let's call it a fluke at this point. And let's say you knew you weren't going to win the Illinois game, but these next 2 games you've got to win. You've got to beat Penn State and Maryland at home.
Brian, does Trace Jackson-Davis and his need to get out and hit that elbow jumper, 12, 15, whatever it is, does that help Race Thompson down low at all?
I mean, Race looks more comfortable knocking in a jump shot than Jackson-Davis. I was just making the comment about his future, because I can't believe he's not looking at the basket in a day and age where all of these guys at a young age are out there chucking threes, and they all want to. They know that the NBA calls for that. It says you got to be able to shoot. You can't be a post player. You know, maybe I'm being hard on him tonight, but he just, even on the inside, he releases the ball so low, drives me crazy. Like he takes his 6'10" and makes himself like 6'7" when he's making certain post moves. He's really good when, you know, he was trying to back down Coburn today. I was yelling and screaming, going, what is he doing? You pull him away from the basket, and now you want to face him up and make a move. It's like he was trying to back him down and thinking, you know, maybe there's a double team coming and he's going to, you know, pump it out to the shooter. I'm like, well, there's no shooters.
And there's no double team coming.
It was like the most wasted possessions I've ever seen. I just don't know how he's not a little more fluid on the perimeter, and he's got to learn to make that shot. You know, again, if he can't make it, I don't want him taking it, but I'm just blown away how he doesn't even look up and look at the basket. It's got to be, to me, he has to be being told not to shoot that. I don't know if he's knocked in any 19-footers yet this year, but he does not even look at the basket, and that's just not a good thing. It just plugs up the middle. I don't know what it does for Race Thompson. It's like both of those guys are the same in a lot of ways. They're at their best if they're kind of filling the lane on the fast breaks that we never have, and they're decent finishers when they're just all of their momentum's going to the basket. But there's no real post game, and there's no face up game. It's kind of one dimensional. Now again, he's played well. Trace has had some statistically good games, but I don't see enough. He's not very well rounded offensively.
Todd, Adam asks, as a freshman, how do you gain that confidence knowing you can go out on the floor and shoot and miss and it's okay?
Well, it's a scorer's mentality. It's the difference of knowing if I miss 4 in a row, if you think I'm thinking about those 4 in a row, you're crazy. The law of averages are going to catch up. And I've always been that way. Brian's always been that way. Guys who are scorers and shooters very seldom keep track in their head about how many they've missed or made in a row. It's just, I think I'm the best option on the floor, so give me the ball. And me shooting it is the best opportunity for us to score. There's times in the game, not times. In my career, I felt like I was the best option on the floor, and I had Brian Evans and Calvert Chaney and Pat Graham and Greg Graham and all these guys on the floor with me, and I still thought we're better off if I shoot it. And I don't think we have anybody on our team right now who I think Armand is. I think Armand feels like right now, give me the ball because I'm the only guy that can score. And I think he proves that in what he's going out there and doing. But that question is, like, I understand what you're asking, but if you're a scorer, you're not worried about the misses. I mean, and until you miss 29 in a row, you're not that worried about it.
But these freshmen, Brian, Christian's a scorer, Trey's a scorer, Leo was a scorer in high school. Geronimo, I'm not so sure about. I don't know as much about him. So, but that's 3 of the 4 right there. These guys were scorers, and you need them to be scorers now.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like I always think of history too, like Todd does. We don't. I don't want to spend all our time talking about old teams that people don't know. It's hard not to when I'm looking at Todd. I'm thinking, he's dropping some of our old teammates' names. And, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Joe Hillman scored 44 a game in high school, and he was not a scorer.
He was the 5th option on the floor at all times.
Right, and that was okay, and they won a national championship. I can look at Anthony Leal today, and I'm watching him run up and down the court, and I'm gonna break some hearts of. And he'll never be a scorer in college. Forget it. He's not going to be a scorer. He needs to be a solid. If he could be Joe Hillman and be a great defender and really get into guys and just be a team guy, a glue guy, he's not going to be a scorer. I mean, I don't care what he did in high school. High school is high school. When guys are not looking at the basket right now, that's scary. I don't care.
That's
when
scary.
I was 17 or 18, like Todd, I was going, they better not leave me open. This thing is going up.
Yeah.
This thing is going up. And it scares me for this team when these guys are not looking at the basket.
Not looking at the basket. That's what scares me.
Thing.
That's what's scaring me about Trey Galloway right now. I totally agree with you because I can specifically remember shooting air balls as a freshman, and it didn't faze me in the slightest. I never got yelled at. I think I've said this to numerous people before, and I know Brian, I think, will say the same thing. I never got in trouble for taking shots. Never. Not one time in my entire career.
How many times did you get in trouble for not taking one?
A lot. A whole bunch.
I never got in trouble for not taking one.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mentality of guys because we said this in the last ball game. In a 30-second possession, offensive possession, you're not going to have 3 good open looks, 4 good open looks. You're going to have 1. If you luck out and get an offensive rebound, you're going to have 2. But if that one comes 12 seconds into the shot clock, you got to be ready to take it. And I bet you Trey Galloway hasn't taken a shot that wasn't in a fast break within the first 15 seconds of the shot clock all year long. I bet he's not taking one.
It makes me wonder what our old coach would have done. The game is so much different. Our 45-second clock, like we were always looking for and working towards a good shot, and he was pretty picky about it, And he let us shoot. I mean, we played a lot faster and scored a lot more than people, I think, try to remember with Coach Knight teams. Everyone thinks discipline and, 7 passes. That's not how we played.
Right.
But we were trying to find a good shot and working to try to find a good shot. I would love to see how he would coach in this era. That, to your point, Todd, you just got to get a shot. You got, if one appears, 5 seconds into the shot clock, you have to, you got to take the shot because you may not get a good one.
Yeah, and this is where, so they looked uncomfortable. I see James's message here about Trace looked uncomfortable at taking that shot. That to me that's a reflection of he hasn't been doing that all season long. Because if he's been doing it all season long and we've lived with it, which we would live with him missing 15-footers, 17-footers. We would have lived with that all preseason. Lose to Florida State, we don't care. Lose to whatever. Take those shots. Get it to where you're comfortable taking them, because against Illinois of the world, when you got to pull a guy out from underneath the basket, you've got to be able to step out there and at least have them respect you to make that shot. And it's just he did look uncomfortable. He is uncomfortable shooting that shot. I think we all would agree with that. We went into the season, Jim, and I know we heard him talk in the preseason interviews about how he's working to develop his, what did he say, 15 to 17-foot jump shot range. Well, where is it?
And Brian, you talk about it, going to the next level. Most people don't expect him to be here after this season, but I don't know how he's going to go anywhere without having that shot. His draft stock cannot be that high playing center.
Well, I don't know where he's going to go. It's not going to be it's not going to be on TV. We're not going to see his games. I don't know what league he's going to be in, but no, I'm a little bit alarmed, guys, and I don't mean to pull the fire alarm. I really don't this early in the year, but the hesitancy of the young guys to look at the basket, and Trace Jackson Davis today, he's been better, but today against a big guy where I thought, face him up and go, or shoot, or you got to knock in, 17 to 18-foot shots. I'm worried about this team maybe falling off a cliff right now, because to your point, Todd, with the schedule, we got to be happy that it's not on the road to Michigan State and it's not at Purdue. For sure, we're happy about that. But this is dangerous. These next two games at home against that bottom third, if they come in here and beat us, I'm worried about this team. I'm worried when I see young guys not confident enough to shoot. Just think back, not to beat a dead horse, but you believed in yourself, and so you wanted to show everybody, hey, I'm here, I'm making shots, and that was for somebody. It's a little, the coach is a little scary. This is a guy that will get on your case in front of everybody. I'm worried when I see these guys not looking to take shots. It makes me nervous for the rest of the season.
I agree with you,
because you're not going to all of a sudden wake up tomorrow and be really confident. It scares me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
There was a comment earlier, I can't find it, but it talked about the confidence that Trey Galloway seems to have. That's the confidence that needs to spread out to all four of those freshmen.
Who's saying that? I don't see that confidence. I don't know who's saying that.
I think he's confident. I don't think he's.
I could show you 20 possessions.
Not
20.
taking the shot. I don't think he's not confident, but I know what you're saying. Yeah,
there's probably 60 possessions in the whole game, 70 possessions in the whole game. I can show you 20 of them that Trey Galloway touched the basketball and cost us a good shot.
He looks like he's working hard to facilitate more than find his own shot.
That's exactly my point. We don't need another facilitator. We got a whole rotation of those guys. We got all the facilitators we need. We need scorers.
Well, do we have? Here's my question: do we have anybody that when you're so not respected as a shooter, right? It makes it really hard to break down the defense and get into the seams and get into the guts of the defense when no one respects you on the perimeter. And so then it's like Finney out there kind of dribbling around, looking like he's like the orchestrator of an offense that doesn't matter because he can't. Nobody's up into him, right? I could stay in front of him, not today necessarily, but he's no threat to shoot. So you just kind of play a comfortable distance from him, where if for some reason he shot, you could kind of put a hand in his face. But that makes it real hard for him to get around people and open things up for anybody else. We're not getting any backdoor buckets. Those buckets that when the defense has to respect the movement of the offense, we're not getting any of those. We were getting ruts when that would happen way back when. We're just, it seems like every bucket is really hard fought, like it's a battle to score. That's what tonight looked like to me, where everything was, we made a three, like you cheer. But nothing's coming easy. There's nothing in transition. There's no work the ball around and find like a 12-foot shot. There's none of that. Everything was just like a dogfight for this team. And it's I think a lot of it has to do with we're not looking at the basket and guys are not trying to create for themselves.
Yeah, there was 2 possessions tonight where Rob Finney drove the ball. One, he got it in the lane and he made the little fake and then he shot it with the left hand and made a great little shot. Very next possession, he drove down and bullied that Curbelo kid and got another little basket in the lane. And I thought the first thing that went through my head was, okay, the bench thing worked. Putting him on the bench at the game worked. He's got a different kind of scoring mentality again. And then I'm pretty sure he never looked at the rim again the entire game. And so I just chalked that up to he had two weird possessions where he got confident all of a sudden, and then it just went away because that's something that we could use out of that position. Generally, I want the point guard to be less selfish. In our case, I need our point guard to be more selfish. I need him to think about scoring more. And that's just foreign to me. That's foreign to me to have to think to tell guys to be more aggressive on the offensive end.
The question here, where are our tough Indiana guys? And you talk about aggressiveness. I know they're kind of 2 different things sometimes, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes you got to be a tough guy by trying to score, trying to be the guy that gets the bucket that your team needs. And does this team have that guy yet? Either one, Todd?
I don't know. I think, I mean, we all want to look at Trace Jackson Davis as kind of like the best player that we have. I'm here to say I'm not sure by the end of this season that that's how we're going to feel. I don't know if that's going to be Armaan Franklin or somebody else is going to step up and maybe we see more promise. You remember when Victor was, he came in the year before Cody and he was really raw. By the time those guys left, he was more of the showcase player. Yogi kind of was too. Cody was more just a glue guy that's going to do everything right, everything within the framework of the team. He's not going to make stupid plays. He's just going to be solid all the time, and he's having a nice pro career. But I mean, I wanted the ball in Yogi's hands. I wanted the ball in Victor's hands. I trusted, occasionally I trusted Will Sheehy. You didn't necessarily want the ball thrown in the post to Cody Zeller because it's not his game. And I have a feeling that's going to be the case with Trace Jackson Davis, that he's just going to be a solid guy. I hope we don't look to him like he's our centerpiece. Like if he doesn't play well, we have no chance. If our team is going to be, he doesn't play well, we have no chance, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, when you look at I tried to analyze this the other day and sit down and think about it. So I'm going to have to single out names here because there's no other way to go about this, but I'm not trying to pick on people individually. But Jim, if I was asking you the question, if I was just asking a random Indiana fan the question, how's Trace Jackson Davis better this year than he was last year? Is he any different? Do you see any difference in him this year than what you saw out of him last year?
To me personally, no, because he hasn't developed. We talk about that shot. That's something that was the development, and it's not there.
Al Durham. You see anything different in Al Durham?
Not since he's arrived on campus, basically. Well, I can't say that, but
okay. Now, if I said to Rob Finney, same. Can you say the same thing?
Jerome Hunter.
If I said Armaan Franklin, and I said I asked you this question 4 games ago, you wouldn't say he was any different. You'd say he was exactly the same.
He looked better. He looked
his stats at the beginning of the year were 17% from the 3-point line, and he was averaging 6 points a game.
He's exploded lately.
Now, do you point fingers? Mike, here's Mike. Let me loud this one back at you guys. Is when you start going down the list and naming all these guys, and I agree with everything you're saying. Is this an individual thing? Like you got to add something to your game? I know that we were trying to do that, but is there a player development issue at IU? Is it a staff thing? Is that we're not developing guys to do things that they weren't doing before, or is this just individuals not working at it, or just it's not translating? I mean, I'm assuming that they're working really hard because I see videos of them, with jump ropes that they're waving jump ropes, and I mean that looks really impressive. But I don't know what does that help. I mean, what does that do? The stuff that they're doing, it's like shoot a bunch of shots all summer, thousands of shots.
Show some videos of free throw shooting. Although,
hey, that's coming from 2 guys' bodies that look like this.
Right. Hey, they used to make fun of me. Todd knows this. They used to make fun of me in the weight room. And they had good reason to make fun of me in the weight room. We did a pull-up contest. I got last place, I'm sure.
We were tied. We were close. We were close.
Well, you got to tell me, how many did you do? How many could you do?
Why are you grilling me?
Yeah, what's that got to do with it?
What's that got to do with it?
Well, my career high was 10, and I was amazed when I did it. Like they shamed me into doing 10 one time. I don't know how, but I was the worst. But I also was in there like they were, our strength guy was always hyping guys up. It was always like this hype testosterone show, and somebody did a bunch of bench press, and Charlie Miller jumped over 5 boxes, and I always inside was going, well, at some point in time we're going to go back upstairs where the lights are real bright and the hardwood's up there, and I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And when they throw the ball up, I'm going to be out there. So whatever.
Oh man.
Yeah, and you know what? Like there's a portion to that that's true, but I mean you hear. You see all these things, like the same thing goes through my mind, and I'm telling you, this is the difference between a mental scorer and a solid player. Is when I see all those videos and I see all the same things, the first thing that goes into my mind is I can still beat that guy in horse. I mean, I can't play him one-on-one anymore because he can out-physical me because I can see a picture of him. But I can tell you, I can beat him in horse today at 50 years old. I could beat him today.
No, you're right about that.
Indiana schedule coming up. I think it's kind of fortunate. They got 2 home games back-to-back, Penn State and then Maryland, probably 2 of the lesser teams in the Big Ten, if there is a lesser team. Possibly an opportunity for them to build on what they did today.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be super interested to see what the lineup looks like. I want to see what that lineup looks like. If he's making some changes, or if this was a scare Rob Finney, stunt, and he's right back in the lineup, and we're right back to where we were before. And I think I've proven myself over the last 2 seasons. I'm not a Rob Finney hater. I'm a big time Rob Finney supporter. I just want him I want to get more out of him. I need to get more out of that position. So, the next 2 games, I hope we see a whole lot more of the freshmen. And you know what, Jim, I'll even say it to this point. I'm not sure we can make the NCAA tournament this year the way that we're playing right now. So I think our only way of doing it is to change the lineup and change the rotations and go for something different. So if that's what we have to do and bite the bullet for a few games, I almost, as an Indiana fan, would rather say that. I'm saying that knowing deep in my mind, I feel like we can beat Penn State and Maryland no matter who we put out on the court. But I also don't know that that's factual.
Yeah, Brian, your closing comments?
Well, I have 2 things. Yeah. So Todd said something the last time that I repeated while we were watching the game. I would like somebody to lob a question to my guest before we close down.
Joe, actually, believe it or not, that was coming next. I was not going to let Joe get out on the score.
We're going to lob him a question in a minute, so you guys think about what it is. But Todd
Joe,
said
what does
something
Indiana
that I
need to
repeated
do
during the game?
Ask Joe, what's Indiana got to do? I can't hear it. What's Indiana need to do against Penn State, Joe?
What's that now?
So what does Indiana need to do to win against Penn State?
Hit some shots.
That'd be a good place to start. That's it. That's it.
I was going to ask him a volleyball question.
He would know the answer.
I know that.
Should ask a petting question.
You said something about Christian Lander that I thought was really good. I wasn't ready to necessarily start playing the young guys just yet, the last game. But I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about, his 5-star status or whatever you want to call him, and just how everything's changed. Like with these kids, they can transfer whenever they want. The world changed, the NCAA changed, the pandemic has changed all these things too. And, here's a kid that left high school, and he's sitting here going, you think he's going to sit around and stay here if he left high school and doesn't play? I hadn't even thought about that. And you've got me thinking, and when he's in, I'm not seeing anything dynamic yet. I think the game is going way too fast for him right now. Like everything's, which, hey, I redshirted my first year, so I'm not trying to be overly judgmental of this kid. But the game is, it looks like it's going a little too fast for him.
I want to see him in there.
I think Archie's got to find some time for him, like I said, because if you don't, and you don't have enough to show him, and you don't have enough of a film session to sit down with him and talk to him and help him, a guy like that may just go, whoop.
And nobody would blame him. I wouldn't blame him. Because Rob Finney is just a junior. And if we're going to play the solid guy who's just not going to make mistakes, we're probably going to play that same guy as a senior, you would definitely think. So if I'm Christian Lander and I'm looking at this scenario and I'm just being realistic, I'm not trying to bring up a problem I don't think we have. I think we have a problem. And if we don't figure out a way to get this kid involved in playing, he will not be in an Indiana uniform as a sophomore.
I agree.
There's a great place to end. We'll be back the next time Indiana takes on Penn State. When is that? On the 30th, 8:30 p.m. Damn, I hate those late games. Gosh darn it. But it's Christmas time. You got the bowl game coming up next. Indiana plays in Tampa next Saturday against Ole Miss. So looking forward to that. But I can't thank you guys enough. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. I hope Brian had a Merry Christmas. The family.
Thank you guys. You too.
Todd, I hope you had a Merry Christmas.
Next time you have me on, I'm going to have a celebrity guest, not just some dude.
Not just some average Joe.
Not some average Joe. Oh, look at I see what you did there.
Average Joe.
Hey, make sure you get out. You're Bloomington. Make sure to get out to Yogi's. Give a chance. Chris, Nathan Finney, and the whole entire Finney hospitality group. Can't thank those guys enough. Chris Martin,
Lindsay. All of them.
Lindsay, Kelly, thank you guys so much. Of course, if you're looking for a car, any more Honda Bloomington could be the place. We'll talk about that later, but we'll be back Monday morning, I guess. So there's that. Man, Todd, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Looking forward to it. What you got coming up next?
Just work. Got a week of work.
Work at it, brother.
Week of work.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you all. Most importantly of everybody, make sure you stay with us and follow us on Indiana Sports Week. We'll be back Monday. Until then, wear your mask. Do something nice for somebody. And until then, I will see you on the radio.